Welcome to the Configure Price Quote Podcast. My name is Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. My guest today is Nils Olsson from Tacton. Nils is the Chief Product and Customer Officer and Chief Strategy Officer at Tacton and has over 25 years of business experience. A lot has changed since we last spoke, especially around AI and CPQ, the acceleration of digital and e-commerce buying motions, and how manufacturers are thinking about platforms and acquisitions to cover more of the end-to-end process. Tacton has also been making moves that signal where they are heading next. So today we'll focus on how Tacton is doing, what's coming in 2026, and what Nils is seeing across North America versus Europe. Very excited to have him back. Welcome back to CPQ Podcast, Nils.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Very excited. When you think about 2026, what's one decision you're making now that you didn't even need to make 2 years ago?
Well, I think fundamentally it boils down to what we're doing. Tacton, as you know, Tacton has been around for a long time. We've done many things over the years, but over the past 10 years, we have really become the CPQ company for manufacturing. We're extremely well known in space, to the point where I think, we've become a mainstay. People refer to Tacton as the ones you got to measure up to. What I think is different about this year is we're actually moving to do more things than just CPQ. I mean, it's all close to CPQ, of course, but it's kind of Tacton going back to a little bit of its roots to look at companies that have high configurability as a core part of their business, high product variance, and how you deal with that throughout the entire organization. So in the past, we were always a little bit like, or over the past 10 years, always a little bit like, okay, how can we support this company in terms of CPQ? But now it feels like we're being freed up. We're looking at how can we support this company when it comes to making great business with their configurable products overall.
Very interesting. Also, one question. You've been now with Tacton since 2015, right? So that's your 11th year. What's keeping you excited right now? So what's the most exciting thing for you this year?
Well, it's kind of the same thing that made me join Tacton 11 years ago. I was a customer of Tacton, right? I started out getting to know Tacton way back in 2021 was the first interaction I had. Became a customer in 2001 and 2002. Yeah. So it's like ancient history, right? Yeah. And back in those days, there were so many things we wanted to do. Joining Tacton, it was really about making sure that Tacton got, the recognition that I thought the company deserved. Now, today, when I go into work, it's the same thing every year. What are we going to do next? How can we help move the needle? What can we do for manufacturing that will help them to take the next step? And that's actually what I feel more this year than probably since I joined 10 years back.
Excellent. And I mean, you have been responsible for product from the beginning, right? So what's one decision that wasn't popular at first, but then turned out later to be popular? You can think of anything that happened?
Yeah, there's a very clear one. Yeah. When we looked at back in 2015, when I joined Tacton, we said, okay, how are we going to make sure that we build the great products that we know we can do? And it's all about focus. So it's you got to pick your target. You got to say, this is what we're going to excel at. You have to learn the hell out of that area. Make sure that you understand what these companies need and what they will benefit from. So that's what we did. We selected to do CPQ for complex manufacturing, to go into the markets where we did. It was Europe, North America, and Japan, and make sure that we did that well. Now, that came at the expense of some things. So there were companies that we were working with, Tacton was working with, that were doing other things than CPQ with our technology. And they were doing some great stuff. And looking at that and saying, hey, yeah, that's excellent. You guys are doing some fantastic stuff, but that's not what we're going to do moving forward. That is tough. that is it's ballsy, and you gotta have a bit of conviction to do that. But at the same time, it is what has propelled us to the place we are today. And I think if I look at Tacton today, all the people working at Tacton and our customers, everyone is kind of agreeing, yeah, it was the right choice. But back when we made the choice, of course, it was tough. It was really tough.
Excellent, but it has worked because Tacton is definitely known for a solution for complex manufacturing, right? So no question about that. But now when I did the introduction, I also mentioned multiple leadership roles, right? So tell me how they, after you've done this now for a while, how that is working out for you and for Tacton.
Well, for me personally, it's one thing. For Tacton, I'm hoping it's even better. But of course, you join a company. I joined Tacton as chief product officer and chief technology officer. So I basically oversaw the product side of the organization, which was good when I joined with the mandate of transforming Tacton into product focused organization. When I joined, Tacton was doing products, but it was doing a lot of services and customized deliveries and stuff like that. So I came in more from, okay, how can we make sure that we build standard products, stuff that people can use over and over again? And it comes with benefits both for Tacton and for the companies that work with us. Now, over some time, of course, that means that you broaden the horizon, you see more things that need to get done. And I gradually kind of moved into the role where I'm putting my chief amount of focus today, which is more on the strategy side, and of course how we meet the needs in the industry. Now, what that basically means is it's a transition over time. You kind of grow as a person, but at the same time, Tacton has grown as a company, and the services that I can provide to Tacton today are somewhat different than the ones that I would add most value with 10 years back.
Excellent. Then now that's maybe a little bit a weird question, but I wanted to ask you what you do to stay close to reality. So what I mean by that is you're still having regular customer calls, right? So because you want to react to what customers want, you mentioned that before. You're a part of advisory boards. You spend time in factories, also on the factory floor, to see what people do. You shadow sales teams. I have no idea. What's your routine? What do you do to get your ear to the ground and see what's really happening?
The most important thing for sure is I have calls with manufacturing companies on a weekly basis, several. Both, of course, customers of Tacton. Yes, I do have business reviews and follow-ups and that sort of thing, but also with companies that are looking to solve a problem. I mean, I'm always happy to get on a call with a company in manufacturing that is looking to deal with, how do we deal with this new generation of products that we're introducing that are configurable, and our systems don't deal with them and so forth. But I think even more importantly is what you said, go down to the shop floor, because every time I visit a company, my main ask, this is actually my main ask, I always ask can you just show me how you built stuff? Because it's when you hit the shop floor, when you go down and look at the production apparatus, that's when you understand a company. That's when you understand how people are thinking, what they're striving for, and all the issues that they might have, which typically they're quite aware of. But when you really get to know them.
Excellent. And I think that's very good advice for anyone, right? To really get out and see what people are building, especially in manufacturing space, obviously, right? So, but now let's talk a little bit about Tacton, right? So, and we've talked about this before since we had you on before and other folks also from Tacton, right? But any listener who has not listened to it just yet, can you say in a couple of sentences what Tacton does and where your solution is the strongest from your point of view?
Well, so Frank, the customer that we're going for, our target group, is really any company that sells equipment or solutions on a deal-by-deal basis where every single quote is typically different from the first. So whenever you have a new customer coming in, getting requirements from them, they will not have the same solution that you sold yesterday, the day before, or the day before that. And what that means is you're typically sitting with a bunch of people looking at how can we fulfill this order in the best way, or how can we serve this customer in the best way? And that in turn puts a lot of strain on any type of system that you want to use to help you create those quotes, because it's typically, you have billions of configurations that you could be offering. And very often companies don't even notice that they could be systemizing it. Very often they're doing it completely manually. So if you're selling solutions that are on a quote by quote basis, but you do have a product architecture at the basis of this, that would be when Tacton is a dead fit, I would say.
Okay, excellent. Then let's look forward to 2026. Specifically, what are the 2, 3 big bets that Tacton is making right now? Product bets, I mean, go-to-market bets, and maybe partner and ecosystem bets that you make.
Right. So when it comes to markets, we're pretty much staying on the markets where we're at: North America, Europe, and of course in Japan, with direct sales with partners. That's the mix that we've been using for quite a while. And, I believe it's working well for us. Of course, welcoming in the partners, working together with a great ecosystem of companies is a boon. It's great for us, and it's great for the industry as a whole. Now, when it comes to products, 2026 will be a transformative year for Tacton. We are introducing a bunch of new products this year. So we will be boosting up our presence in the manufacturing space with not just CPQ. It will also be solutions that are connected to CPQ, offering value for areas such as engineering, order fulfillment, and services. And this is something that we believe is really, really interesting and kind of shows the potential of CPQ actually at its core. Because CPQ is very often seen as a sales tool, just a plain sales tool. But in manufacturing, it's not just about sales. It is actually how you take all the skills and effort in the organization and you channel it to create value for customers and thereby justify a good margin.
Yeah. Excellent. So then you have even more changes, because last year you announced these acquisitions of Variantum and Serenytics, right? So and now, how is that going, by the way? What has happened there? What's customer feedback you're getting for this integration?
Great customer feedback, but I would say as well, just great people to work with. These two companies that joined Tacton have turned out to be kind of like, when you do M&A, you say, okay, what's a dream acquisition like? Well, we got two companies in. The people are great. The spirit, the engagement, the know-how, it's just one of those great things to be part of as you run a company, right? Now, when it comes to the products themselves, that's where we're seeing the market responding extremely well. So in the fall, we had our Tacton summits where we showcased a little bit, not all, but a little bit, a teaser of what's to come. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive. So the companies that we work with and actually other, companies that we're not working with yet, they've come back to us and said, hey, you better get us on pilot programs here, because this is kind of like the Holy Grail. What you guys are doing is the thing that we've been looking for such a long time. And yeah, I of course, I'm happy to hear that. That is why we're doing this, because we at Tacton, we are as giddy about the potential that we could do in manufacturing as any company in manufacturing. It's really a game that we're in together. But the new capabilities from these companies, truly awesome. I just walked through the latest development of the new capabilities we have for supporting engineering and order fulfillment. It's even better than I hoped for. So great stuff that we're about to introduce now.
Excellent. So then let's talk about customer expectations, because they will notice a couple of these things first. What do you think? What will come first, and how will they notice this? Because there's a lot of stuff you mentioned, right? So what will be the biggest difference for them in 2026?
Well, all of our CPQ customers have already noticed that there's new analytics capabilities in their CPQ. So we bought Serenytics, as you mentioned, a company that had a full stack analytics solution, and all of a sudden it's part of Tacton CPQ. So You go into Tacton CPQ, you want to look at how many users logged in or whatever amount of quotes you issued and so forth, all there. But the amazing thing is all the additional things we can analyze with the data that you create in Tacton CPQ. And of course, when it comes to Variantum, it's a company that has spent decades being absolutely super honed and skilled on what it takes to drive the back end of the organization well when you're having configurable products. So all of a sudden, we're now looking at the possibility of not only selling the product through a CPQ, but having that directly translated into bill of material, both for engineering and order fulfillment. It's just such a leap in terms of capabilities. If I look back at my career, I spent years, in manufacturing. 20 years ago, if I would have had what we're looking at right now, that would have been the dream. That would have been, this is exactly it.
Yeah.
So, to some degree, I could say, if you're in manufacturing, well, hey, we used to be in manufacturing, and now we're doing the stuff that we would have hoped back then was available. But guess what? Now it is.
Are you evaluating CPQ solutions? The Novo CPQ briefing subscription gives you vendor-neutral briefs you can read in minutes. They are built for the early step of selection, moving from a long list to a focused shortlist of 5 to 10 vendors. Each brief explains capabilities, where it fits, and what to watch out for. No hype. Many subscribers pair the briefs with AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini to search faster and compare options. If you want clarity before RFPs and demos start, learn more at novocpq.com/cpq-briefing-subscription. Shortlist faster. So when customers say to you, we want AI in CPQ, what do they actually mean most of the time from your point of view? Is it better pricing, better analytics, better self-service, better selling guidance? What do they have in mind? What do you see?
I think it's very simple if you boil it down. When you're looking at AI, you want everything to be easier. Basically, that's it.
Yeah.
How much can you make how much easier? Now, of course, AI or Gen AI, especially because that's what we most normally talk about AI nowadays, is really good at certain tasks. And there are certain things that you can do with Gen AI that completely reshapes how you do things. So pricing, yes, there are great use cases in that. When it comes to structuring data that has been previously unstructured, I mean, things like product information, these type of things that are very often a foundation for a CPQ. But it's also down to things like how you interact with your customers. And then, every once in a while I get the question, well, do you think everyone will do like a chatbot thing? And I say, no, chatbot is 1990s. If you want to do Gen AI, what you're going to look at is, hey, I got this RFQ. It's 500 pages. It takes 2 weeks to go through and understand what we can do about it. Why don't you just upload it into AI and let it tell you what you should do? So there are so many different use cases, and we're working on a bunch of these. But there are so many that it's almost like, it's going to take years to get through them all.
And how much does it help you to sell the solution right now, these AI capabilities? Is that one of the top 3 selling arguments at this time that you say you have AI?
I would actually say so, but it boils down to 2 very different reasons. So one is everyone is afraid of being left behind, right? So, hey, AI is changing the world. How do we make sure we're not falling behind? That's a powerful argument in itself. It means that you're looking into what you could be doing. But then you have, of course, the sort of up and front, super obvious productivity gains, value drivers. So both of those work in a union. And as a result, if you can show, yes, of course, we're using AI to mitigate these issues. And yes, we're using AI to drive these benefits. It helps people realize that, okay, this is where I need to do something differently. This is where I need to invest.
And which AI use cases do your customers adopt first, and why do they adopt these first?
I would say the one that people are going to the most at the moment is modeling. So when it comes to setting up configuration models, very often what we have seen in the past is, okay, there's some stuff and then there's okay, we have this guy over here and that guy over there, and there's some documentation in the cupboard. And then when you try to put that into CPQ, it sort of like becomes a bit of a workload. And now with AI, of course, the great thing is you can just take tons of data and transform that into actionable information that you can use to set up configuration models. And that's taking a lot of headache out of implementation projects. So one of the things that used to be kind of the biggest detriment, I would say, to CPQ, especially if you want to do like proper CPQ for complex products, has all of a sudden become a lot less of an issue.
And one main obstacle to adopting AI was, at least over the last 2 years, also the trust in data, right? So, where is this data used? Where is it stored? Who can access it? Is it secure? What do you see there? What has changed also, especially on the Tacton side, to give customers the confidence that their data is secure?
I think it's, you know, for any business relationship to work, you need to have trust. And fortunately, there are mechanisms in place to instill that trust. At Tacton, we take data security, data privacy extremely seriously. And once you have your SOC 2 compliance, your ISO certifications, your uh, all the tests that you could ask for, once you have those in place, I think people are not that worried anymore. It basically means you tick all the boxes. But I think on top of that, the fact that Tacton is one of those companies that sit with an impeccable record in terms of delivery over more than 25 years, that also helps. And it's not for your average organization. It's for some of the most nameworthy manufacturing companies and multinational global brands on the planet.
Excellent. And now I want to talk a little bit about CPQ and e-commerce, right? And I know you've been publicly speaking about manufacturing, e-commerce, and digital buying. And I wanted to know what's, from your point of view, what's the current reality, right? So how many manufacturers truly want to have self-service, and how many want to have more an assisted or a digital assistant, more or less? What do you think?
So I think there was a train that went a couple of years back when I think it was like 5, 7 years ago, where everyone was going e-commerce and CPQ was, wow, what's CPQ? I couldn't disagree more. I knew it already back then because CPQ is, if you look at the high product variance manufacturing, let's take a company that sells solutions for 5 million US. You're not going to go onto a website and swipe a credit card for that. What you want to do is you want to explore it. You want to be able to first search it and find it, understand what it does, explore it yourself, typically without talking to a salesperson, because we all know that that can be a bit, rough every once in a while. They're trying to sell you, but you're not certain you will buy yet. At some point, you want that salesperson, right? But so what we're seeing is there's a growing maturity in the manufacturing space where everyone's kind of realizing that, yes, you want to expose what you can do. You want to expose your capabilities, your configurability of your solutions online. But then you kind of want to have a discussion, probably online still, with a potential buyer. So customers can find their way into, let's say, a smaller area where they can interact with your products and get some feedback from you. And then once you're getting closer to the deal, that's when you get people talking to each other physically in a room. But what's more interesting, I think, is that digital relationship that you establish, that's not going away when you buy. It's actually staying. It becomes your hub of interaction. So I do foresee that in years to come, once you have sold to a customer, you will have that, let's call it that SharePoint or whatever you want to designate it as, where you have installed base information, current services, new things they can buy from you, consumables, and advice from your skilled staff to your customer. Now that becomes all of a sudden a community, and that community holds the value of why I think fundamentally, large solution sales will not become a pure e-business game or e-commerce game. It is down to trust between individuals that are experts in their fields. I know myself when I was buying solutions from Tacton, because Tacton is a solution provider as well. One of the reasons I was interacting with Tacton over years was because I met with people that knew their stuff, that I could trust. Yes, they wanted to sell, but equally much, they wanted me to succeed and become a customer that would buy again. And that, I think, is something that every company is looking for.
Absolutely agree. No question there. I have more questions, especially about capabilities. So you also have something that's now called Connect to Anything that's Workato based, right? So, and what integration problems were customers struggling with most, and what does no code recipes now really mean for these customers, for the Tacton customers?
Yeah, so we found this really interesting thing. A lot of companies that we work with, they have their own middleware platforms and will do integrations between different systems. That's great. That's perfect if that's the case. But there are some companies that don't. And what we realized is, well, we could spend time building dedicated interfaces into every single system out there. But that's probably not ideal. So when we started talking with Workato and realized that they'd already solved this, their main game was to create recipes to integrate with different solution platforms out there. Well, why not work together? So if a company needs us to work with a certain flavor of ERP, CRM, whatever it is, well, odds are that Workato is already doing that. So in essence, what it means is you want to integrate Tacton in your tech stack. You have some company that you bought that are using some obscure CRM. Well, hey, we probably have an app for that. So that's kind of the melody that we're seeing here, and it just takes cost, time, and risk out of any engagement.
And since Tacton is operating in North America, Europe, and Japan, so it's a global company. So I was wondering, when you look at this, what do you see as the key differences between these markets, and where do you think Tacton is especially strong from your perspective?
Well, the manufacturing industry is not that different depending on where in the world you are. I would say the biggest difference is if you're in a low-cost country, you will put more manpower at it, and if you're in a high-cost country, you'll do more automation. At the end of the day, those two things are not the winners or losers. They're basically just the formula that you're using to gain the right cost profile and efficiency and so forth in the market that you serve. I would put it this way, though. There is a growing trend for companies to move. Every in the manufacturing industry, companies operate on this CTO to ETO span, I would say. So some companies, they go all in on configuring the products as much as they can. And then some companies say, well, it's easier for us to just put engineers at it and solve it case by case. There is very clearly a move from ETO towards CTO. It has been going on for a long time, but we're seeing it even more in recent years. So if I were to hold up a little bit of a crystal ball and say, what do I think will happen in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years in this space in manufacturing, and that means impacting systems like CPQ, it is that they will move more to CTO, so configure to order based sales, with a capability for managing partial ETO. So more and more standard product architecture, and then be able to discern where do we have small portions of this that falls outside. And what that will mean in terms of CPQs in this space that are successful is you have to be good at both doing sales configuration, right? But you also have to be really, really skilled at looking into what's needed for engineering and order fulfillment to be able to drive that space well.
Got it. And for the end, I have saved a very big question. We don't want to spend too much time on it, but at least I want to get your take on it. Is also the platform, right? So you see more of these solutions don't want to be just CPQ anymore. They want to be platform solutions, right? Meaning a unified data model underneath it and so on. And since you mentioned that at the beginning, I wanted to follow up here, also explain us quickly what you mean by Tacton becoming more than CPQ, is becoming a platform.
Well, so I think it's quite easy, actually, if you take it down to the core. It means looking at configurability. So in CPQ, of course, the first letter in the three-letter acronym is C, configure. Now, what tends to happen in a lot of companies is you then say, oh, this is the sales configuration. It's happening in isolation from anywhere else that you're touching the product. Well, if you take that back to what I just mentioned about CTO and ETO, it means that, well, if you're configuring a quote halfway and then you need to do some engineering on it, engineers have no idea what you just quoted, or they're going to have to do some manual work to understand what it was. So when you look at configurability, which is the core of how you do business, if you're in a highly configurable sort of solution company, that's when you want to make sure that you deal with configurability in one place. So I when people say platforms, I very often hear people say, oh, we're going to be a platform for, this or that. Well, a platform is only a platform if it offers to take away the issues from other areas where you don't want to have to deal with it, and take on that challenge of sorting it out whilst serving everyone else. So if you're, for instance, Salesforce, it's a platform for customer engagement. Well, then you have to make sure that you cover all the aspects of customer engagement, right? You can't say, well, we're doing customer engagement and everything except for that, because then you're not the platform for customer engagement. Same thing with PLM vendors. We have the platform for engineering to develop products. Well, then you got to do all the things that come with it. You can't say that you don't want to touch CAD. Well, sorry, engineers touch CAD. And the same thing goes for configurability. Configurability is something that's used in sales to sell products, do quotes. Of course, you need it in engineering to understand how you configure your equipment. You need it in order fulfillment to make sure that you deliver the right thing. You need it in services to understand what was the configuration and why was it configured this way, to be able to sell the right services and do upgrades to the customer. So when I say platform, it's really about taking the key capabilities of what Tacton can do to offload other systems from what they're not very good at doing, and at the same time make sure that we support those systems with all the information and data that they need, ultimately bring greater value to the customer.
Great, and that brings us to the end of this episode. Hence my last question: what's a good way for interested listeners to contact you or the Tacton team if they have more questions?
Well, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm there. Otherwise, just info@tacton.com. Contact us as an organization. We have people in the US, in Europe, in Japan. Just let us know, and we'll be happy to engage and support you in any way we can.
Thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today, Nils. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com. So long, everyone.